It's time to cover something new for our boy Dre to overview. Get ready for a beautiful collection of things to dive into under Dre's election. All audience members will find their own part, whether at the end, the middle, or the very start. We've got a full adventure to go, so please sit back and enjoy the show.
Battle for Dream Island is an animated series by the YouTuber Jack and Jellyfy, created by two twin brothers named Carrie and Michael Huang. When I was 8, I watched the series the whole way through, and I'd say all the episodes are good. It has 20 contestants as objects, going through contests to win an island known as Dream Island, with the announcer/host being a robotic gray cube with a speaker bulb. You can see all the contestants right here, and you should be able to figure out which person's which by their names. There's a contest in every episode, and the viewers vote in the comment section for one of the losers to leave the show. There were a total of 25 episodes. I'm going to talk about each one and what made them special. Just a heads up for those of you who haven't seen the series, I'm going to be spoiling a lot. If that's fine with you, here we go. Episode 1A, Take the Plunge Part 1. The episode that served as a gateway to these guys' long career as animators. This episode serves as an introductory to all the characters. We got to see them all, and some of their personalities. Then the announcer came out of nowhere to tell Eraser all about Dream Island. To start the long battle, they had all 20 contestants stand on a balance beam above a body of water. However, there was a lot of pushing and shoving, especially from Flower, who is nothing but a big jerk in this series, and from Ice Cube, who wanted to join Pencil, Match, and Bubbles' alliance, pushing them off in the process. Eventually, we had our final two contestants, Leafy and Pin. That was when the announcer revealed they were going to be the leaders of the two teams, which would form to start the battle for Dream Island. Episode 1B, Take the Plunge Part 2. This episode started off with the team captains, Leafy and Pin, choosing which contestants they want on their team, with the help of the contestants they had already picked. This was nice, as we got to see more of which people liked each other. My favorite part was when Needle, who is female, picked Snowball, who is male, to which Blocky commented that they're in love. And Needle said, "No, Blocky, I like Coiny more." And everyone was shocked that she had the audacity to admit to that out loud. After all that, the teams got to choose their team names, but no one could agree on anything, so the announcer picked the names. The Squishy Cherries and the Squashy Grapes, to go with the team leaders' red and green colors. The first contest was to go across the river and rip the ribbon at the finish line. Both teams built boats to go across, not without any chaos during the process. On the Squashy Grapes, Snowball got into an argument with Golf Ball, which eventually led to Snowball throwing her off a cliff. And on the Squishy Cherries, Eraser stepped on a nail and then fell into a bunch of other nails. The contest part was also chaotic. The Grapes, who used a motorboat, went too fast and crashed into the Cherries' boxy boat, causing it to break apart. And the Grapes went flying in the air amongst a bunch of random goofy objects. So the Cherries decided to swim to the end, and Pin used her pointy head to break the ribbon and win the contest for the Cherries. Episode 2, Barriers and Pitfalls. This episode has our first elimination. It was for everyone on the Squashy Grapes for losing the last contest. The elimination time is called Cake at Stake, because everyone who is called safe from elimination receives a slice of cake. The way the first cake at stake panned out was great. Everyone who was called safe, except for Snowball, failed to catch their slice of cake and got it splattered on their faces. But the part I loved was when Flower on the team got voted out with 4 of the 6 total votes between the 10 contestants being voted for her, which is embarrassing yet well deserved for her. She was so angry about getting voted out, she tried to crush the announcer with her announcer crusher. But instead, it hit Golf Ball, causing the machine to crack and violently explode, sending Flower away. The second contest was an obstacle course, where each team who successfully finished poured water into their team's bucket. And the goal was to fill up your bucket with water. They made it an action-packed adventure. There were some epic fails during the course, like Yeetle climbing up the rock wall to repeatedly have a fist come out of nowhere to punch her. Yet she still made it to the end to win the contest for the squashy grapes. Fiery on the squishy cherries also made it to the end, but unfortunately for him, he can't handle water since it'll extinguish him. And what if you fell off the course? You had to wait in a room where you were basically trapped, and it was called the Failures Waiting Room. This episode served as a way to make it really feel like this was going to be a great series. Episode 3, Are You Smarter Than a Snowball? For the first time, the squishy cherries faced elimination, and Spongy got out, probably because nobody liked him for being fat and smelly. I don't mean to fat shame anyone. The third contest was for everyone to take a test of basic knowledge that had 20 questions, and the team with the more correct answers win. But why is the episode called what it is, you may ask? Because I'm not kidding, Snowball didn't know what his own name was on the test. The episode may sound kind of boring, but you know who made it the most interesting if you think that? Pencil. She drew a doodle on her test, which gave the viewers a trippy experience. Fun fact, the song used during her doodle helped inspire me to come up with the melody of a song in my head from my fictional rock band Legendo, the song titled Spiraling Through Rainbows. This episode also had a funny running gag. Different contestants kept falling into this one little hole in different ways. My favorite was Tennis Ball, when Rocky kicked him for being mean to him and he couldn't stop rolling and kept picking up speed. For a brief moment, the cherries won the contest, but the announcer realized Blocky and Penn used the answer sheet to cheat on the test, so the grapes won instead. Episode 4, Sweet Tooth. Blocky got his karma for cheating in the previous episode, as this episode was when he got eliminated. He was the one who stole the test answers to begin with. Anyways, the fourth contest was another good one. It's reminiscent of the cooking shows you see on TV. The contestants bake whatever kind of cake they want, and the announcer, along with the previously eliminated Flower, rate their cakes on a scale from 1 to 10, and a magical die of judgment was rolled. Unfortunately, Flower's not a fair judge. Leafy, being the overly generous person she is, made a giant strawberry cake to lend it to the contestants who had trouble making cake themselves. But what about some of the original ones? Pin won the contest with her smart idea to make her cake a flower sculpture. My favorite was when Golf Ball got all zeros for accidentally putting dirt in her cake. And even the die gave her a 0, despite the fact it's not even supposed to have a 0. Although the cherries won that part of the contest, the announcer had to find a way to make them lose again. So, for part 2, the goal was for each team to eat 100 chocolate balls as quickly as possible. But don't worry, no one got sick, because it was as a whole team to eat them all. Anyways, the grapes won that part, and Snowball won the team's tiebreaker, which was for one team to rip the team's tie first. Episode 5, Bridge Crossing. For the third time in a row, the cherries were up for elimination. The cake at stake had a running gag I thought was pretty funny. The cake was an ice cream cake, and every safe contestant who had previously mentioned they love ice cream cake didn't get it, in one way or another. My favorite was when the announcer launched Fiery's slice at a fireplace inside a house, which caused Fiery to threaten to crush the announcer. He sounded just like Flour. Anyways, Woody, the scaredy cat, got voted out. This was the episode where they revealed that anyone who got eliminated was sent to the Tiny Loser Chamber, a gray box they were trapped in. He basically trolled everyone, saying they'll be treated with TLC, an acronym for that place. They also turned the contest, which may sound boring, into an ongoing running gag. It was to cross a bridge. The problem was, Snowball, having anger issues, kept throwing contestants into the pit, causing others to fall off in the process by breaking the bridges or bumping them into others while throwing them. Because nobody had crossed thanks to Snowball, they did the same tiebreaker they did in the previous episode. Snowball ripped his team's tie once again, allowing the Squashy Grapes win for the 4th time in a row. Perhaps throwing people off was his secret tactic to win for his team. Episode 6, Power of 3. In this episode, the leader of the team, Pin, got eliminated. No, not Pen, Pin. She got eliminated because her ego got the best of her. She had 2 win tokens from contestants 1 and 4, and using one of them would have removed half of her votes, and Pen probably would have been eliminated instead. Anyways, this put the Cherries at 6 players and the Grapes at 9 players, which are both multiples of 3. So for this contest, everyone split into 5 teams of 3. The contest was to go across 3 islands with different objectives. The team that finished first got a win token, and the team that finished last was up for elimination. My favorite part was when Match accidentally locked Pencil inside a safe when they were on Island 1, which was, the objective was to crack safes open to find a raft to paddle to the next island. What made that part so funny was that it didn't even make sense in the first place why Pencil was in that safe before Match locked her in there. The whole time, Coiny, Needle, and Ice Cube's team was in first, while Fiery, Eraser, and Pen were in last. But it turned out to be the opposite in the end, because Coiny's team kept obtaining fake keys to unlock the door to finish, and Fiery's team went on total speedrun mode. It was pretty cool seeing the back and forth throughout the contest. Episode 7, Puzzling Mysteries. So it was just between the 3 contestants who lost last time to be up for elimination, which is pretty scary, not gonna lie. Needle used a win token and still got eliminated. I bet it's because every time someone calls her Needy as a nickname, she slaps them and says, "Don't call me Needy." Her elimination was payback for being hypersensitive. For the 7th contest, the announcer, being the savage he is, put the contestants in an empty room and lied to them, saying that there's no way out. So they cut to a commercial, which is an ongoing trend where Yellowface advertises his products. When they got back, everyone was frantically running around the room screaming their heads off. In order to escape the room, they had to solve a jigsaw puzzle that had each of their team's logos. Guess what? The Cherries lost yet again because they had all their puzzle pieces upside down. So they were all just plain brown. But since the TLC couldn't hold any more contestants and the announcer had to enlarge it, the Grapes got to choose a player from the Cherries to be on their team. Everyone picked Fiery, which it seems like they did it on purpose just to make Coiny upset, since they hate each other. It also took the Cherries all night just to find 2 of the 9 pieces that stuck together. Did they just give up because they knew they lost? I don't know. Episode 8, Cycle of Life. This was the only episode, other than the first one, to not have a cake at stake. So they got right to the contest. It was a relay race. Since the grapes outnumbered the cherries 9-5, they spun a wheel to see which 5 of the grapes got to participate in the race. Each contestant had to carry the person behind them, and the last person would run the lap without carrying anyone. Guess what? The cherries lost for the 6th time in a row. Are you even surprised at this point? A racer blamed Bubble for their loss because she popped and had to be recovered in her recovery center and walked back. But really it was Match's fault because she popped her by holding her too hard. But once again, no one was getting eliminated the next episode. Instead, the voters voted for an eliminated contestant to rejoin the battle and join the grapes next episode for winning the contest. Episode 9, Insectophobe's Nightmare. Blocky was voted to rejoin the battle and join the Squashy Grapes team, which meant the grapes were double the size of the cherries, 10-5. When the announcer pointed out, Bubble was like, "You don't have to rub it on." Because of her speech impediment, I've thought for years the saying was rub it on instead of in. Anyways, the announcer split the grapes into 2 separate teams to make it even, so there would be 3 teams of 5. The contestants got to pick who they wanted on each of their teams, but unfortunately, Coiny and Fiery ended up still being on the same team. This part was one of my favorites. Coiny said, "Fiery goes to my team, and he's just so dumb." Then Fiery gave the generic response, "I know you are, but what am I?" But Coiny's comeback was great. He said, "See, you're so dumb, you don't know what you are." Burn. Then they got to choose their team names. Leafy decided her team would stick with the Squashy Grapes, but Fiery wanted his team to go with it too, but Golf Ball told him they have to pick another name. The announcer took this literally, and their team name was another name. Anyways, the 9th contest involved the contest tying their legs together and racing to the finish. The cherries finally won a contest. Another name was in the middle. There was a lot of back and forth between the 2 of them, but the grapes, they lost, thanks to Snowball. He got impatient that his team was taking too long to tie their legs together, so he tied them up into a ball and pulled them with his leg. The weight was too much for him, and they didn't even come close, thanks to his brilliant idea. He also caused his team to fall into a bottomless pit that night. I remember when I was younger, this was my favorite episode because of how funny I thought it was. Episode 10, Crybaby. You bet Snowball got voted off for being so mean and making his team lose. And he got more votes than all 4 of his teammates put together, so he should have been eliminated, right? Or so you'd think. The new rule was that with 3 teams, the 2 people with the most votes were voted by the winning team to be on their team or else they'd be eliminated. The second most voted person was Teardrop, and the cherries made a split decision to have Snowball on their team, and Teardrop was eliminated. I'm guessing because she was eliminated, the announcer decided the next contest would be a crying contest, and to fill each of your team's tanks with as much water with your tears. Blocky, being the cheater he is, took Fiery from his team and used him to melt his teammate Ice Cube, which was not only cheating, but also cruel to Ice Cube. But don't worry, she got recovered in her recovery center. The announcer, I'm guessing, noticed what he did, so he declared the contest a tie. The tiebreaker was a skiing contest, but Rocky decided to stand in everyone's way, causing the cherries, in another name, to crash into him and roll into a snowball. So they need yet another tiebreaker since the announcer couldn't tell which team was which, and it was a handstand contest. It was to win or lose, since the Grapes already placed second in the skiing contest. Another name lost almost instantly, so the Cherries won again. It may sound like a long video, since it was the only time there were 3 contests in one video, but they all ended quickly. It makes for a unique video to watch from the series. Episode 11, Lofty. This is the shortest episode of the series, being the only one that's under 6 minutes. But it still feels just like the rest of the episodes. Anyways, the top 2 voted contestants from Another Name were Golf Ball and Rocky. And all 6 contestants on the Cherries voted for Rocky to be on their team for all different reasons, with them all being against Golf Ball rather than in favor of Rocky. That poor Golf Ball. So she was obviously eliminated. To start the next contest, the contestants had to climb up a ridiculously high flight of stairs. They climbed up for 13 days and nights, which equals 312 hours, and the average person goes upstairs at 1 mile per hour. So they were about 300 miles high. So really, they should have been in the Earth's upper thermosphere, which is high enough to reach into space, but whatever. The 11th contest was to tie your team colors balloons around your waist and use nails to throw them at the balloons of the opposing teams to pop them. The clumsy tennis ball fell off the top of the staircase before the contest even started. So it was a 7 versus 3 versus 2 contest. But surprisingly, the Cherries didn't win. They were in the middle. The Grapes won and Another Name lost again. This was the first episode to have this show's iconic dodging sequence. For Leafy's team to win, she had to fly around a crazy sequence of nails, and it became a running gag in other episodes with different characters dodging different objects. Episode 12, A Leg Up in the Race. Since Another Name's little team of 3 lost last time, only one player was safe, and it was Fiery. So the Grapes would vote for either Coiny or Tennis Ball to be on their team. Despite Coiny pleading to stay in the game, they chose Tennis Ball, and Coiny was eliminated, which means Fiery is now all alone, and if he loses, he'll be automatically eliminated. But luckily for him, this was the episode where the teams were broken up. Everyone's on their own now. So how did the contest work from this episode forward? You'll find out in just a moment. The 12th contest was to be the first to climb up a ladder to the top. It wasn't that simple though, because the announcer dropped water balloons as a prank. The challenge sounds simple, but once that was done, things started to get interesting. Now that the team phase is over, the remaining contestants are battling to get the most points. For this episode, the contestants stood on gray paddles that would go up and down for earning or losing points. First, everyone got 30 points. Second, each win token the contestants had were traded for 15 points. Third, everyone got points depending on which place they finished the contest where they climbed the ladder in this episode. And finally, everyone lost a point for every elimination vote they got in previous episodes. For some reason, it always entertains me to go back to this episode and see the process of everyone's paddles they were standing on going up and down, and seeing all the back and forth of it. But who was up for elimination? 4 people with the lowest scores, which were Snowball, Bubble, Rocky, and Tennis Ball. Episode 13, Don't Lose Your Marbles. Since a new episode of this series was made on the first day of every month, this was the 1-year anniversary of BFDI. Anyways, the cake at stake was pretty cool. At the beginning, the contestants up for elimination saw the cake at stake place was renovated, to which they initially showed displeasure, but took a complete 180 when the announcer said you're supposed to like it. And also, the fact the cake was dead fish. But anyways, remember how Snowball got more votes in episode 10 than everyone else put together and still stayed in the game? Well, it came back to bite him here. Him losing points to previous episode from his votes in episode 10 is what just barely put him in the bottom 4, and then he got voted out in this episode. Anyways, the 13th contest was to find red balls that were scattered around. And much like the previous episode, the points you earned were based on what order you turned them in for the announcer to see. The running gag this episode had was that some of the contestants turned in a maroon ball, which were just slightly darker than the red ones. Like, that's a red ball, and that's a maroon ball. The announcer wouldn't accept it. In fact, he'd give them a 10-point penalty and tell them to go back and find a ball that's actually red. What a troll. Tennis Ball and Rocky were still in the bottom 4, and Match and Ice Cube joined them, so they were up for elimination. Episode 14, Half a Loaf is Better Than None. To start, Match was eliminated thanks to the announcer putting maroon balls in the previous contest. She would have been safe if that didn't happen. This unfortunately broke her up from Pencil and Bubbles' alliance, so Ice Cube substituted her. But Match still had a chance to rejoin here. The 10 eliminated contestants had to put as many loaves of bread into each of their baskets before the time was up. The contestant who ended with the most rejoined the game. For some reason, some of them drowned in the loaves of bread. Spongy, despite moving slowly, used his big fat body to throw 12 to 13 loaves of bread into his basket at once, so he rejoined with 38 bread loaves, which means he started off with 38 points. Additionally, him, Tennis Ball, Ice Cube, and Rocky got 10 bonus points for having the disadvantage of being armless. Tennis Ball got another 15 bonus points for retrieving marbles in a vat of hydrochloric acid using a magnet he pulled out of his inventory. Then we finally started the 14th contest. It was to jump over increasingly difficult hurdles on a conveyor belt. Each one you'd successfully jump over gave you 5 points. The running gag I liked was how Bubble kept saying, "Oh Noyo, look at the next one." Her and Blocky jumped over 5 hurdles, but the 6th one was no joke. It was like 50 feet high and had 2 giant razor blades. It was obviously impossible. This meant that Ice Cube, Leafy, Eraser, and Fiery were up for elimination for having the lowest scores, being in what's known as the danger zone. Episode 15, Vomit Taco. To start, this episode had another one of my favorite reactions to being eliminated. It was Eraser. When he saw he got voted out, everything was silent, and it cut to him giving a horrified facial expression. Looked like this. With Eraser gone, they are at the final 10, the halfway mark again. The 15th contest was the only one where the contestants got to choose between 2. It was between the barf bag or the taco contest. The ones the contestants chose ended up being split 5 to 5. Part 1 was the barf bag contest, which Pencil, Bubble, Ice Cube, Rocky, and Blocky chose, where they stood inside a big bag of colored water and got 1 point for every second they stayed on their platform. Like I said, it was luckily just colored water, but ever since episode 4, Rocky started throwing up everywhere, turning the water into actual vomit. This caused Pencil to throw it at Rocky, knocking him off, and the rest of the contest was people knocking each other off. Pencil also had the brilliant idea to make ice cream, putting Ice Cube on a cone and using the vomit as the flavoring. Very disgusting, I know. Anyways, Pencil stayed on for the longest, at 60 seconds. For part 2, each contestant that chose the taco contest had to make a taco. Each of the 10 eliminated contestants tasted their tacos. Each contestant got 10 points for each one who liked it. Spongy got the most with 8 likes, but Penn got the least likes at 3, because, like in the cake contest, he took part of Leafy's taco instead of making his own, and people could tell he cheated. This came back to bite him, because if he had one more like, he would have escaped the danger zone, but he got put up for elimination along with Bubble and Rocky for being in the bottom 3. Episode 16, Bowling, now with explosions. Since this episode was uploaded on April 1st of 2011, it started with an April Fool's joke that the entire episode would use puppets. But they shortly came back to the animation, revealing it was a joke. At Cake at Stake, they had an explosive blueberry pie. I'm not sure what could be in a pie that would make it explode. But anyways, Penn was eliminated, meaning him cheating really did come back to bite him. The 16th contest was a bowling contest, but only contestants with arms could participate. They each had one shot, which may sound boring, but things got interesting from there. Instead of earning points for the pins you knocked down, you got to subtract 30 points from other contestants for every pin you knocked down. This led to 750 points being subtracted from everyone in total. Most of their choices made sense, but there were a couple of questionable ones, like Leafy taking 10 points off everyone, including herself, and Blocky draining away all of Bubble's points just to be mean to her for no reason. Not to mention, he laughed at her and pointed at her when she didn't knock down any pins. So you'd think the bottom 3 would be up for elimination again, but actually, everyone was up for elimination this time. I'm guessing as another April Fool's joke. Except for Fiery for knocking down all 10 pins. Episode 17, The Reveal. Like I was saying, everyone was up for elimination, except for Fiery. Blocky ended up being the first contestant to get eliminated for the second time. If I'll be honest, he deserved it for the way he's been treating Bubble. Since it was the final 8, the contestants split into 4 teams of 2 for the 17th contest. It was simply to successfully throw a frisbee to your teammate 3 times across the dirt. Pencil and Bubble finished first, Spongy and Rocky finished second, Fiery and Tennis Ball finished third because Fiery used his tongue to throw the frisbee and his saliva stuck to Tennis Ball. But Leafy and Ice Cube didn't even finish before the sun came down because Leafy kept shattering Ice Cube with her frisbee. Then the points were revealed. To start, Ice Cube got 125 points for having the least votes at Cake at Stake. Pencil and Bubble got 200 points for finishing the contest first. Spongy and Rocky got 100 for finishing second, and Tennis Ball and Fiery got just 15 for finishing third. But Leafy and Ice Cube got a penalty for not finishing before the sun came down. How many points do you think they lost? 25? 50? Maybe 100? No, they lost 1,000 points. That's messed up, isn't it? That makes it beyond obvious that the 2 of them were in the bottom 3 and up for elimination, and Tennis Ball joined them for having the least points out of everyone else. But one recommended character was going to join the game next episode. The voters got to vote on which one joins. Episode 18, Reveal Novum. Since the voters voted for a recommended character to join, the contestants who were safe got to vote for Leafy, Ice Cube, or Tennis Ball to be eliminated. Leafy and Tennis Ball were tied at 2 votes. The tiebreaker was to jump over a ledge, and the clumsy Tennis Ball got eliminated by missing and falling. But who got voted by the viewers to join the game? His name was David, right here. He's just a stick figure who says nothing but all seriously in a weird voice. The 18th contest was a staring contest, which the contestants completed in brackets. Most of the contestants did something to the other one to make them blink. The main running gag was that David kept winning by scaring the contestants he competed against by turning red and screaming all seriously demonically. But it didn't work when he tried it on Pencil. It literally took them the entire night. In a subplot, the eliminated contestants into TLC were trying to escape, and they ended up in a lake. The rising sun was what saved them from drowning. The rising sun had also finally caused David to blink because he's allergic to sunrises. So Pencil won the contest, earning her 60 points. So you'd think she'd be safe from elimination, right? Well, unfortunately for her, there was a new scoreboard that could only hold 2-digit numbers, which already affected everyone's scores to begin with. Because Pencil earned 60 points when she was already at 45, once her score reached 100, it reset to 0, putting her at 5 points in last place. So her, Spongy, and Fiery were up for elimination. She was justifiably upset by how unfair that was, but it was pretty funny for the viewers to see that plot twist. Episode 19, Rescission. Go figure, Pencil was voted out and eliminated thanks to the announcer downgrading the scoreboard. It's also worth mentioning, she didn't receive a single vote until episode 17. That's probably why people voted for her. Anyways, this was the episode that officially ended the points phase. Now, everyone was simply battling to win for immunity from elimination. The 19th contest was to ride a unicycle to the finish. This episode had some strange moments. Leafy and Ice Cube went the wrong way and fell down a structure that was filled with random objects. When David was riding down a hill, this one, he suddenly started singing Mary Had a Little Lamb using high-frequency beeping noises rather than actual words. Bubble finished first by blindly going down the hill and bouncing off of Spongy. Rocky and Fiery finished second and third, earning the three of them immunity. Since Bubble finished first, she got to choose someone else to receive immunity. She picked Leafy, because in the previous episode, Leafy got upset when Bubble threw away the springy shoes that she got for her, because it was making it hard for Bubble to stare at Leafy for the contest. This meant that David, Ice Cube, and Spongy were up for elimination. Episode 20, Gardening Hero. This episode started with everyone getting launched into space because of budget cuts, according to the announcer. The entire episode took place in outer space. David, despite having just joined 2 episodes ago, was voted out in this episode. For the 20th contest, since they were in space, everyone got a spaceship, and they'd shoot lasers at the other contestants. The last contestant standing won immunity. There were also other obstacles such as meteors and black holes. Bubble was the last one standing, and won once again. Everyone else got recovered in the Master Recovery Center, and Bubble got to choose another contestant to receive immunity with her, and she picked Leafy again for the same reason, to prove to her she was a nice person. Then came my favorite part of the episode. To demonstrate that Bubble had a long way to go before reaching Leafy's level of niceness, a chart with 77 levels of niceness appeared on the screen, using increasingly over-exaggerated ways to emphasize the word nice. I loved this as a kid because I was really into charts, and it had inspired me to make a couple long charts with the same kind of theme, with other adjectives. But anyways, in the next episode, a previously eliminated contestant was going to rejoin the battle for one last time. Episode 21, The Glistening. At the start of the episode, everyone was still in space. They had to use poor Spongy as fuel to fly their spaceship back to Earth, leaving him all burnt. Anyways, before it was revealed which previously eliminated contestant was rejoining, they got to vote between Fiery, Spongy, Rocky, or Ice Cube to be eliminated. The results seemed pretty balanced until Snowball said he was voting for Ice Cube because she'll cool down the TLC when it gets hot. And then everyone else who hadn't voted yet picked her for the same reason. Then out of nowhere, a bunch of random characters that weren't supposed to vote pressed the button to vote for her. I know it's mean that people would use her as a tool like that, but just like that, she was eliminated. and then it was between 14 contestants to rejoin the game. The contestant who rejoined was also the first one to be eliminated from the game. Do any of you remember? It was Flower. It may sound crazy that people would want to vote for her to rejoin, despite how mean she was, but I think people wanted to see more of her jerky personality, since we didn't see much of her before. This was basically the Cake at Stake episode, due to how long it was combining both parts. So the contest that followed was brief. It was to see who could jump the longest. Leafy won the contest by jumping into a map to teleport to Yoyoland, which is 2,763 miles away. By the way, it's not a real place, only in the show it is. The announcer didn't consider it cheating. But Leafy gave her immunity to Spongy anyways, because she felt bad for burning him in the rocket ship earlier. Episode 22, Don't Pierce My Flesh. The episode starts with a sequence, which leads to the announcer getting crushed by Spongy, which started when Fiery showed a bug to Flower, not realizing she's afraid of bugs. Because the announcer was gone, Fiery and Flower used the replacement speaker boxes to host the game, which both had the same personalities as their creators. Another unusual thing was they had to use a tub to measure the votes instead of the TV due to budget cuts. Flower almost got eliminated the episode after she rejoined, but Rocky just barely got voted over her, so he was eliminated. The Fiery speaker box wanted the next contest to be to escape the volcano, but the Flower speaker box wanted a beauty contest. They ended up doing the volcano contest because Flower was the only one to agree with her own personal speaker box. Fiery could swim in the lava unharmed because he's fire, but the rest of the contestants kept burning to death and had to start over. But eventually, they used Spongy as a platform to get across and go through the rest of the volcano. It seemed like a good competition, but eventually the volcano erupted, sending everyone flying out at the same time. So the tiebreaker was the beauty contest, which was the Flower speaker box's idea. Fiery and Flower automatically won due to the speaker box's biases for their creators, so everyone else was put up for elimination. Episode 23, Hurtful. Good news. The original announcer was recovered and he returned, and we got to see more of his clones too. Spongy was re-eliminated, by the way. The 23rd contest was the final contest. It was a combination of every previous contest from episodes 1 to 22. This led to some continuity references, which was something I liked seeing. For example, the first two questions on the test from episode 3 were revealed to be the same as in that episode. And in episode 4, everyone except for Fiery used a clump of dirt instead of making an actual cake, because that's what Coiny did. And in episode 13, Leafy accidentally collected a maroon ball instead of a red ball. The final part, to climb the pole and escape the volcano in episode 22, was chaotic. Leafy and Bubble got into an argument because Bubble told Leafy she's tired of her being too nice and letting her win. So Leafy broke up his friends with Bubble. Then Flower came up, scorching Leafy in the lava, saying they're now friends. But Bubble scorched Flower in the lava and climbed up to the top to win immunity. Episode 24, Insectophobe's Nightmare 2. The penultimate episode and the final elimination. You'd imagine this would be a very short episode because it's just an elimination and there's no contest. But the creators found ways to make the episode last. It started with a suspenseful Cake at Stake, where the announcer claimed he was canceling BFDI if there were fewer votes than the previous time, since it would be the third time in a row. The votes counted up by just 1 per second, making it suspenseful. During that time, we got to see 3 ads. My favorite one was an advertisement against advertisements because of the irony of it. Unfortunately, they only got a total of 735 votes, which was fewer than last time. Since it went up 1 per second, that's 12 minutes and 15 seconds they were waiting for. Luckily, the viewers didn't have to wait that long. Anyways, Flower was angry about BFDI supposedly being cancelled because she wouldn't get Dream Island. So she threw bug eggs at the announcer. This led to a huge outbreak where the bugs were chasing the remaining contestants and they ate all the eliminated contestants, and the rest of the contestants died too. But then it was revealed by Leafy they supposedly faked their deaths, and the announcer decided not to cancel BFDI. Anyways, Flower got eliminated with a record of 524 votes, which made her both the first and the last boot of the show. So the voters got to choose between Leafy, Bubble, or Fiery to win Battle for Dream Island. Episode 25, Return of the Hang Glider. Here we go. We finally made it to the series finale. The eliminated contestants were finally freed from the TLC, and they chose who they wanted to win Dream Island. 19 out of the 21 contestants picked Leafy, and the 2 that picked one of the other 2 got slapped by the other contestants for not choosing Leafy. But their votes didn't matter because it was up to the viewers to vote on who wins Dream Island. It was Fiery. So he got the grand cake, a mashup of every cake from all the previous episodes. Then Fiery got to choose who he wanted to join him on Dream Island. He let the first 19 contestants in. And then he did the unthinkable and let his arch enemy Coiny in after he convinced Fiery to let him in. And they became friends. But then came the most shocking part. He rejected his best friend Leafy from Dream Island. He did that because in the previous episode, he made her a Ferris wheel with a lava fall, not realizing Leafy couldn't survive in lava like Fiery can. And she said, "Get me out of this thing." If I'm gonna be honest, it hurt for me to watch the first time I saw Fiery reject Leafy like that for that reason. So she made a fake dollar bill using a paper slip and bought Dream Island, which meant that nobody else had it. Yes, after 2 years of battling, Dream Island was gone, much to everyone's horror. They eventually found out Leafy stole Dream Island for revenge. There was a bunch of chaos going on. The rest of the contestants tried to execute Leafy with Flower's announcer Crusher, but Fiery snatched her on a hang glider. Then came a beautiful ending to the show. Fiery said he was sorry for what he did, and what he wanted most was to spend time with Leafy, whether it was on Dream Island or not. After a disappointing finish to the show, that was an awesome way to end it. And that's every episode of Battle for Dream Island reviewed. The series started right at the beginning of 2010 and ended right at the beginning of 2012, but the Huang brothers still upload new episodes in other seasons. The other seasons have a lot of the original characters, but they introduce new ones as well. Since no one got Dream Island in the original season, they have another season called Battle for Dream Island Again, or BFDIA. They uploaded the first 5 episodes, but then went on a 10-year hiatus with that series, not uploading any new BFDIA episodes from the summer of 2013 to the summer of 2023. And now they did 23 episodes of that series, and there's probably just 2 more to go. However, they didn't totally stop uploading during that time, they just stopped uploading for that series. They actively worked on 2 other series during that time, known as Battle for BFDI and The Power of 2. The former is completed, but the latter is still in progress. These guys were just 12 when I started animating for BFDI, and it makes me happy that they made a career out of it. Anyways, that's all I've got to say in this long video, so I'm going to close it. Bye guys, and thanks for watching.